Last one, guys. Welcome to part 5, the very last Q&A video about how to talk to other people and deal with other people about rumps. Hi, guys. Okay, this is the last of the Q&A videos that I'm going to be making for the questions that everybody sent in for the 500 subscriber giveaway. This is a late night one, and I just washed my hair and I blew it out, but I've got this frizz thing going, and I decided to just embrace it, so I left it down. Normally when it does this frizzy old lady looking thing, it's not split or anything, but it does the frizz. I don't get it. I've never lived anywhere where my hair does this frizzy thing before. This is like a unique phenomenon since I've lived in North Carolina. Okay, this one is all of the uncomfortable questions. These are all of the questions that were related to how did I talk to other people, how should you talk to other people, how do you deal with people who are negative, all of those questions that have to do with, the feelings of having to hide it or that sort of thing, and or people being nasty, or the fear that you're going to get, negativity for this still unfortunately unconventional choice. And so those are the questions I'm going to answer in this video. But I've come up here without anything to drink, which was stupid. I normally have a beverage with me. So I'm going to go get one of those, and then we'll come back and commence with the questions. Okay, as per usual for a late night video, the old lady's going to put on her glasses so that I can read without eye fatigue. Okay. Question 1. Have you told people in your life that you use cloth pads? Yes. Now, I don't go around starting conversations with people about it. That's not typically something I do. But if a related subject comes up, or, if I happen to be talking about my day with someone and the fact of my day is that I made one of these videos, or I was answering questions, or I was sewing cloth pads. I mean, I've never hidden it from anybody ever since I made this choice. And everybody on my Facebook page, which includes pretty much everybody I went to school with from kindergarten through senior year, and every blood relative I have, and every friend, so they all know. I don't post every video there. I don't constantly advocate there, but they've all been made familiar with what I'm doing. Are you open about reusables with your whole family and your friends? Yeah, I'm really open with it. Again, I don't go around on a crusade all the time, but when it comes up, I'm completely open about it. And I've talked to lots of people about it in my real life, and answered lots of questions for people, and I've honestly not had nobody's been nasty to me about it. Who was the first member of your extended family to know that you use Rumps reusable menstrual products, and what was their reaction? Gosh, I don't know who the first one was. I honestly don't know who the first member of my extended family was to find out. Because of the geographical situation with our family, we are 1,500 miles from my relatives, and we're 3,000 or more miles from my husband's relatives. So everything is through the computer. So I'm sure that they all found out roughly at the same time, which was when I started posting on my personal Facebook page about, hey, here's this thing I'm doing. Because I did do that. And their reactions most of them haven't talked to me about it. If their response has been negative, they certainly haven't said anything negative to me. So I haven't dealt with any of that. I'm assuming their reaction is, there's Amy on another one of her things. That's probably what the reaction is. It's like, oh Lord, look what Amy's doing now. Are your friends and family supportive of your use of cloth? Yes, they are. My immediate family, of course, is very supportive. My closest friends, the ones who have actually sent me messages and said, okay, what? The ones that I've actually had conversations with about this, they've been extraordinarily supportive. Only one of them actually has tried them. It's not appealing. But again, that was the way I was when it was introduced to me. Billy Joe told me about them, and I enjoyed her company and had a great deal of affection for her, but I didn't jump on the train. I certainly didn't think, I was like, yay, she's got something that she likes. But no way, man, I'm not doing that. And it was several years before I finally came to, okay, well then I'll try them. And then of course it changed everything for me. So then I got all excited and started doing this. So I kind of equate it that way. All of my friends have been very positive and supportive. They haven't all started using reusables. But I've never had, no one close to me, no one that I have a relationship with has been negative. How do you feel about telling other people that you use cloth, such as a mother or a sister? If it ever came up in conversation, if it was ever applicable to what we were talking about, you bet. And if it was a family member or a really close friend or what have you, I would definitely advocate in that conversation. If it's somebody that I don't have a relationship with, if it's somebody that I don't feel I have sway with, or someone that I really am invested in making them understand, I would probably just let it go. But if it comes to like a mother and a sister, now there's two different ways to look at this. If you are an independent adult, you live on your own, you pay for your own stuff, you're funding your own life, and your health and medical decisions are yours to make, then, then it's entirely up to you. You don't, see, because here's the thing. There are a lot of people who, when they get passionate about this, like I have, they look at any hesitance to talk to other people about it as implicitly saying that you're ashamed of it. But there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. I am not secretive in any way, shape, or form, and I encourage everyone out there who's, listening to me, contemplating this, doing this already, who's grappling with how to talk to people or how to tell people. Because when you get excited about something like this that's changed a lot of things for the better for you, then you kind of have this, I want to tell everyone because I want everyone to be this happy and I want everyone to experience this. I want everyone to have this. So there's that, and that's perfectly natural. And then there's the flip side, which is, I'm enjoying this. This has been wonderful for me, but I don't want to hear people tell me that I'm gross. I don't want to listen to all of their, quite frankly, ignorant, because they don't know any better. They've been told by every establishment voice that there ever has been about menstrual care that the kinds of things we're doing are archaic and not as good as the hermetically sealed plastic packages that come off of a factory line. So there's those two warring motivations. But what it boils down to for me is, when I don't walk around with a placard saying, change to cloth, that's not me being secretive. That's not me being ashamed. That's not me being stingy with information. That's me holding this part of my life private. This is something that happens, it's a part of my body that's private. My reproductive system and what I do with my reproductive system are private. I don't walk around talking to people about my genitals. I mean, I do now on the YouTube channel because it's applicable. It's advocacy related. It's information related. It's education related. So I find it worthwhile to put aside my privacy for this, in this forum, in this little venue. This is where I put aside my privacy to share things with you. But in my public life and outside of this forum, outside of this venue, I don't walk around talking to people about the most personal, intimate functions of my health and of my body. And if that's the way that you feel about it, because, don't let anybody make you feel guilty about that. Your relationships are yours, and your privacy is yours. So if you don't want to, for example, start a YouTube channel where you talk to God and everybody about your periods, that's your choice. And that doesn't mean that you're being ashamed. That doesn't mean that you're hurting the cause or anything like that. I find that particular attitude extraordinarily incorrect and wrongheaded. It's your business. If you want to keep it private, you don't have to tell anybody. Let's see. So Yeah, tell your family if you want to tell your family. If you don't want to tell your family, you don't have to tell your family. It's private. It's not secret. But your mom and your sister might like to know. They might want to change. And if you tell them about this option and their first response is, "You are crazy, that is just nasty," then I guarantee you as soon as you leave, at some point they're going to end up looking it up on the internet, and you never know. Do many of your real world friends know about your YouTube channel? And if so, do they also use reusables? Everybody in my life knows about my YouTube channel. And people who know the people in my life know that I have a YouTube channel. And they know what it's about. But I've also received lots of private messages from people, from girls that I went to elementary school with, who were like, "Hey, I read an article about this," and would ask me. And a couple of them have begun trying them. How many people have I converted in my real life to reusables? 3. Have you ever had a close friend or family member that was not supportive of your choice? No, I haven't. And then the second part of the question was, if so, how did you face that? And did you try to explain the benefits, or did you just leave it there? My advice for people on that, because I know how I would handle it, it would depend on how important or how close the relationship was. You know what I mean? If it was someone that I haven't seen since I was in the 5th grade, no, I wouldn't pursue that, because I don't know that person well enough. I'm not invested enough in that person's daily life. They're not invested in me, and I'm not invested in them on a very personal, intimate level anymore, even though I very much care about what happens to them, or they wouldn't be someone who has contact with me. But if I have a person who's tangential in my life like that, an acquaintance as opposed to a very good friend or an immediate family member, or if it was like, a cousin that I see once every 10 years at a family reunion, no, I would not pursue that with that person. However, if it was a person who is in my daily life, yeah, I don't think that I would be able to resist the need to explain why I'm doing it, and to try to impress upon them that even though I'm not going to come into their home and force them to use cloth, I'm certainly not going to come in and abscond with their tampons and throw menstrual cups at them. But I would want them to understand why I made these choices, because quite frankly, I was in hell. I was in daily physical hell before I switched. And I think it's important for people to know that. And then as soon as I switched, I dealt with it for years, and it was just gone. It was that important in my daily life. So yeah, I would pursue it if it was someone who was close to me and who was stridently negative or stridently hostile. I would explain it until I was exhausted, or until they relented. Yes. See, sometimes the glasses help and sometimes they irritate me. Sorry. How do you respond to people who react negatively? Now, these are people, I'm assuming, since we just talked about the ones I know, I'm assuming that this is the way I'm going to answer this question is, how do I respond to people who react negatively to cloth pads and or menstrual cups that I don't know? So we're talking about like an on the internet scenario. It depends. Because for me, I'm a pragmatist. As I've said over and over again, I'm not a terribly emotionally demonstrative person. I'm not a robot. I'm not like Sheldon off of Big Bang. I hug people and I smile and I laugh. I'm not a robot. But I don't get really emotional in response to just like trolls on the internet. That stuff doesn't really gnaw at me. It does if it's personal, like if somebody comes after me personally, or if they go after, or if it's just rankly stupid. Sometimes it'll just hit that nerve like lemon juice on a paper cut. But, for the most part, what I try to do is I just examine it and I'm like, is it worth it to talk to this person? Or is it not? Because there are some people who are just being nasty to be nasty for the pure and simple joy of upsetting people. It's like, every now and then on the channels that have, these huge, for example, let's take a non-menstrual YouTube channel example. I mentioned Graveyard Girl. I watch her videos. I watch lots of videos on YouTube, but she's one that lots of people are familiar with. And if you look in her comment section, there's always somebody who just will come in and say, "You're ugly," or something just completely stupid like that. You know, they'll just insult her to get a rise out of people. And that's the only reason they made the comment, was to upset people, because for whatever reason there are people who are really sad, who have really empty lives, and their idea of a good time is to go on the internet and see if they can get 100 people upset. And so if it's a comment like that, like if someone were to come onto my YouTube channel or into one of the Facebook groups or what have you, and they were to make some kind of a randomly nasty comment like that, that wasn't really motivated by a lack of understanding or a desire to understand or just a mistake, I let that go. You know, if you, for example, okay, here's a real life example. If you go, for example, to the fabric store, and some woman working behind the counter at the fabric store looks at the fabric that you're purchasing and she says, "Oh, what are you going to make with that?" And you tell her that you're going to make cloth menstrual pads with it. And she's like, "Oh my God, that is the nastiest thing I have ever heard of. Ew, I don't think I could even," you know, that kind of a really like raised in a barn with no manners kind of response. That's not worth your time, because just no. However, if you get from that same lady at the fabric store, if you get a, "I've never heard it," really? Isn't that gross? That's completely different. That's completely different. That one's worth your time. Get in there. Go to battle on that one. And then, because then you can answer questions and you can start off, "Oh gosh, no, it has changed my life." And then you can open a dialogue. And that person might not be immediately receptive. But see, there's a difference between the first negative example and the second negative example. And learn to distinguish between, because the first one, not worth your time. Because those are the kind of people that it won't matter what you say, it won't matter how clear you are, it won't matter how good your information is. They won't concede to you that the sky is blue, even if you pulled out a prismatic chart and scientific evidence proving that the sky is blue. They would still look up at it and say, "Nope, that sucker's purple." And they will never listen, they will never agree. Because someone who's willing to be that rude to a complete stranger who's never done them harm, they're not going to listen to you. It's not worth getting your feelings hurt. It's not worth feeling ashamed. All it's worth is pity, because that person's pretty sad. But the second type of person, that's totally worth it. If there's even a hint of curiosity, it's just the natural that we all have the first time that we hear about this. So learn to tell the difference between someone with whom it would be productive to have the conversation and someone with whom it would be a complete waste of your time and just end up having you get your feelings hurt and get all upset and offended and insulted by this horrible person for no reason. Do you see the difference? So that's my advice. If it's going to be worth your time, get in there. If it's not, leave it alone. Okay. What is my favorite thing to say when someone shows interest in switching to cloth? Start with, "It changed my life. My life is completely different on a daily basis because of them." That's my favorite thing to say, because then it gives you an opportunity to completely change the conversation, because then you're not talking about cloth pads are great anymore. You're talking about, well, how did they change your life? That doesn't make any sense. How did they change your life? So then we're not talking about bleeding onto something. Then we're talking about all of the problems I had before that I don't have anymore. And we don't have to talk about the things that make people uncomfortable. But, you know, so that's the best way to open it up is, "Oh, they changed my life." You know, and whatever it is for you, it's like, "Oh, I save $200 a year," or whatever it is. Start with something that's not, you know, directly about, "I'm going to put one of my cloth pads in your face and I'm going to make you look at it and I'm going to make you talk about things that make you uncomfortable." Start with something very positive that you can explain, that doesn't have to do with how many fluid ounces we're talking about. Stay away from the negative imagery with people who are brand new and just focus on the benefits. What do you think is the best way to bring up reusables to your female friends or family members if you want to spread the word about it? Well, I made a YouTube channel. You can blog. You can donate pads to people who you can donate them to, and I think that the best way, I mean, and for some of you, this might not be the best way, but in the relationships that I have and the personality that I have, I've made pads for my friends and just given them pads and leave it to them to talk to me about it or not. So keep them in your house. Also, another thing is, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's an excellent opportunity. If you have, you know, people are always like, oh, I keep a box of pads around in case somebody's over at the house and they need one. Well, I don't do that. If somebody's ever over at my house and they need one, I'll give them a cloth pad and I'll leave it to them whether they throw it away after they've used it or whether they wash it and use it again. Just, you know, if they come over to my house and they find themselves without menstrual care, I'm going to hand them 3 cloth pads and I'll be like, here, use these. And, you know, and I'll tell them what they are at that point. And I'll be like, but if you don't want to, that's fine. It's none of my business. These are for you. If you want to use them and throw them away after one use, that's entirely up to you. But if you want to reuse them, if you wear them and you want to reuse them, you let me know. So that would be a good way, is to, you know, if they're under your roof, they come to visit and they come to spend the week and they're like, oh gosh, I don't have anything. Do you have a, you know, can I have a pad? You give them a cloth pad. Don't keep a box of disposables for your guests. Just have some extra cloth pads. Yeah, the best way to bring it up to your female friends and your family members, and I'm assuming these are people that you're close to and that you want to introduce them. Don't talk to them about it. Don't anything. Just give it to them. Don't do it in public where it's going to embarrass them. But give them some pads and be like, yeah, I use these now. I wanted you to have some. Let me know what you think. And then let it go. Don't bring it up. If they come to you and ask questions, or if they want to have the conversation, talk about it. I think for the menstruating friends and family members in your life, the best way to bring it up is just to hand them some and say, I love these. Changed my life. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, advocacy comes in lots of different forms. And basically you just think, okay, do I have a Bible study group? Do I have a school group? Do I have, you know, a women's group like a quilting club or a sewing club or some kind of women's group that I get together with and do things? You know, my yoga group, do you get up and do stroller exercises where you and a bunch of ladies in your neighborhood stroll around the neighborhood with your children as an exercise and children's outing kind of routine? Do you have a Mother's Day out group? You know, do you have a group of girlfriends that you go out with on the weekends or whatever? Take the social groups that are available to you in the capacity that you feel you have. And the one I had was this. But not everybody is interested in doing this. Not everybody is comfortable doing this. Not everybody has the time to do this. Not everybody is good at talking to themselves in a computer monitor in a way that comes across. Some people can write letters, write blog articles, you know, talk to people on Facebook. And some people are just really good at explaining things one-on-one. And if you are the kind of person who people just trust, that people are just automatically open with, take advantage of that personal talent of yours to spread the word that way. That's very effective. Word of mouth is very effective. But don't do anything you're not comfortable with, because again, it's up to you. Okay, now we get into the harder questions, and I'll be right back. Okay, I feel like I have to hide what I am doing, and I just think it's so ridiculous. Now, this is from a person who's not a younger person living with, you know, parents. So this is not a person who's saying, you know, I feel like I have to hide this from my mother. This is a person who feels like she has to hide it from coworkers, you know, and I've had other people who specifically in their private messages to me mentioned a work environment where they felt like, you know, when they were at work, they were terrified to go into the work restroom because they were terrified that someone would know what they were doing or find out or figure out what they were doing. And I'll give you a more serious response after this, but this is very important too. And I think, you know, I tend to smile and smirk a little bit when I'm saying this because I'm not laughing at any of you with this. I'm laughing at me because I have this sensation as well. Not about reusables anymore, but there are a lot of things in life where we experience this sensation of, I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing. And if I walk out this door into the public, if I walk out into the sunlight, they're going to take one look at me and they're going to know. That sensation that we have. I'm sorry, I keep shifting this chair. It's on this little plastic mat. And so I push my chair forward and it automatically tries to roll back. And it's so annoying. It's not comfortable. Okay. So here is a universal life lesson. Imagine like, you know, spa music in the background with charms and chimes and stuff, giving you deep advice. Again, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at me because, but this is a deep truth. This is a life lesson, and it's not just applicable to reusable menstrual products. Nobody is looking at you. None of us is as vibrant and special and center of the universe as we feel sometimes. And if you are in a bathroom that's not your bathroom at home, and somebody else comes into that bathroom, so you're in a public bathroom at the store, you're in a public bathroom at work, you're in a public bathroom in your university, and you go in there with your wet bag, and you have your cloth pads, and your menstrual cup, and your wipes, and your gear, your kit. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody notices that you're carrying anything. And if they do notice that you're carrying something, they're going to assume that you have the same menstrual products they carry. They're going to think that in that wet bag you have disposable tampons and pads because that's what they use, and they think everybody in the bathroom is looking at them. No one is looking at you when you go into those places. So it's really an irrational fear that we have. It feels very real. I know it does, especially when you're new to this, because it's all you can think about when you've changed. It's like, okay, I've got this menstrual cup and I've only inserted it successfully twice at home, and I really have to go change it now, and this is the work restroom. And I'm nervous about this, so everybody's going to look at me and they're going to know that I'm wearing a menstrual cup that I have to go into the bathroom and change. And when I'm in there, they're going to hear me empty it. And they're going to know that I'm not going tinkle. They're going to know that I'm emptying a menstrual cup into the toilet, and then they're all going to talk about me. That isn't happening. The only place it's happening is right here. I promise. Nobody's looking, nobody's thinking any of those things, and nobody's going to notice. And here's another thing. A lot of people, especially with menstrual cup use, because actually cloth pads are much cleaner. The dealing with them is much easier and cleaner than the disposable pads. Your chances of having something messy or untoward happen to you while you're changing out a cloth pad are much less likely than with a disposable pad. In addition to which, there's no adhesive ripping, so none of the ladies in the bathroom with you are going to know that you're in there changing a pad. They might hear a little snap or this or that or the other. They're going to think that you snapped closed something, like a bag or whatever in the bathroom with you. So cloth pads are not really where people have this. Where I find people have this particular fear is with menstrual cups, where they think, okay, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to change out the cup, and as careful as I am, I'm going to have something on my fingernail, or I'm going to have something that I missed on my fingers, or I'm going to go in there and the toilet paper isn't going to get it off or whatever, and I'm going to walk out and everybody's going to know that I have this on my hands. Well, everybody who uses disposable tampons, that's something that happens to them too. So there's absolutely no difference between what you're doing and what they're doing. Because think back on your life. How many times have you gone into a ladies' room, whether it was the one at home or whether it was the one at work, and had something on your finger from replacing the disposable tampon? I know that I had that happen just as frequently with disposable tampons as I do with menstrual cups. And I would always do my best with toilet paper, and then I would have to walk out to the sink. And I always thought somebody's going to be at the sink next to me, and they're going to look over, and they're going to see the fingernail, and they're going to know what I've been doing in the stall. Never happened. Nobody ever looked over, saw my fingernail, and cared. But here's the other thing. With menstrual cups, I always have wet wipes on me. So that doesn't ever happen to me anymore. So it's actually less likely now that I'm, prepared and I have my menstrual cup with me. So I've never had that kind of a situation. Now I don't work daily and I don't go to school daily anymore, but I used to. So I know what those environments are like. Again, like I said, you don't have to tell people. You don't have to go around communicating about it. But if that's when we get to the other side of that, okay, where you're constantly in fear that people are going to find you out, that level of shame is, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and call it a pathology. I think that we have all pathologized, meaning we've turned menstruation into something that is so highly offensive, and our fear of people noticing that we have periods, or people noticing that we don't hate our periods, or people noticing that we're not completely grossed out. Oh, I'm just as grossed out by it as you are. If they find out that we're not one of those people, we have this fear that if any of those things happen, that something bad is going to happen to us, that nobody's going to like us anymore, that people are going to think bad thoughts about us, or whatever. And that's become like a pathology. It's almost like this mental illness that all women in the modern world have been convinced that this is so shameful that how dare we find something that makes us comfortable with it? How dare we talk about it openly? How dare we even have these conversations? You guys need to get your bleached paper pads and your bleached rayon tampons and go sit in the corner and be quiet and turn the lights off and close the door and don't ever mention this again. That's the attitude. That is the conditioning. That is the societal message. And the reason that everyone who's written to me about this has these fears is because of that dynamic. And you have a choice to make. You either accept that and let it rule the way you deal with a process that you're going to deal with once a month from 11 to 14 all the way up to the age of 40 or 50. If you want to spend all those decades in your life viewing all of this as a burden instead of just a process that's no big deal, that we're just going to take care of, and that we're going to use the most comfortable and hygienic options available to us, it's a choice that you have to make, whether to accept this scenario or whether to say, no, it doesn't have to be like that. I'm going to wear pads that are comfortable and made out of cloth that have flowers and cartoon characters and things that make me happy on them. And I'm going to use a menstrual cup because I'm not going to put my body at risk for the comfort of all these other people over here that are living in this scenario. I'm going to do what I've researched and what I've found that works for me. And I'm not going to be ashamed of it because it's as natural as breathing. It's as natural as eating. It is part of the reproductive process. And every person who doesn't have a medical condition that has changed the way their body works, everyone's body who works the way that it was intended to work has a menstrual cycle if they're female. So it really is. It's a choice. It's a choice you have to make, whether to embrace that shame or to say, no, I'm going to take that pack off and I'm going to set it down and I'm going to go buy a new backpack to wear. And it's going to be one that I picked out. And you guys can keep that backpack over there. And maybe you guys can take that backpack into a closet and turn off the light and shut the door because we don't want to hear it anymore. And that's the choice that I've chosen to make. Because I lived in daily physical misery because I was carrying that backpack. And I finally decided, okay, maybe I can go over here and look in my friend Billy Joe's backpack because she seems to be having a better time with this than I am. And then I went out and got a backpack of my own. Do you see what I mean? I hope that wasn't a totally clumsy analogy. But so this fear that you have, this feeling that you need to hide it from everyone in the world, or that everyone in the world is going to take one look at you and know, that's a choice. It really is. And it's a hard one, and I'm not minimizing it. I'm really not. You're not alone. For the person who wrote this to me, you are not alone in that sensation. There are so many people who feel that exact same anxiety. They feel that exact same pressure from people. And it can be, it cripples them, and it cripples them to the point where they're like, screw it, I'm just going to use disposables. I can't do this. But then you're giving people you don't even know. And remember, like I said, that's not even real. Those people they're not seeing you. They don't know you. If you don't tell anybody, no one will ever know what you've got in your underpants. They don't know. They certainly don't know that you're using a cup instead of a tampon unless you tell someone, okay? So nobody's going to figure it out, nobody's going to see it, and nobody's going to pass judgment on you. But there is that societal opinion if you do tell people. And if you were to go in and tell people, there'd be a few who would respond that way. And that's where your choice lies, whether you're going to let those people determine what you do and that you are ashamed of it and that you sit in the closet with the light off and the door closed about it. Or whether you say, okay, I've sat and I've thought on this and I know why I'm doing this, and I'm not going to let you make me feel dirty and ashamed about it. And it really is, it's a choice. And take as long as you need to figure out which side you're gonna pick. You know, I mean, it's entirely up to you. Remember, privacy. It's your body. It's your reproductive system. It's your privacy. So it's entirely up to you. And that's the response that I have about those sets of feelings. I'm tremendously sympathetic to it. I really am. I get it. I understand. I just chose to take that pack off. And you will take the pack off when you're ready to take the pack off. And don't let anybody make you feel like you're weak or there's something wrong with you for not, taking the route I did. You don't have to get on YouTube and advertise to anybody who wants to come along and watch what you're doing. That's the choice I made. You don't have to make that choice, okay? So just sit with it on a daily basis and just, it's okay, I promise. Okay, so there was another part to this question. How do you bring this up to friends so that they too can learn the dangers lurking in disposables, but not think that you're crazy at the same time? Well, first you have to let go of the condition you put on the end, but not think that you're crazy at the same time. Now, this is, you can't control what other people think. So you can't control whether they're going to think you're crazy or not. But okay, you specifically said, your friends. If they're your friends, they're not going to think ugly things about you. Again, that falls into all the other stuff I just said at length. And so you have to at some point come to accept that your friends are fully aware that you're not perfect and that you are not exactly like them in every way. They've chosen to like you. They have given their affection to you. They like to spend time with you, or they wouldn't be your friends, right? So, give them a little credit. They're not going to completely boot you out the door if you do something that they don't choose to do, or something that they think is a little odd. You can't control what they think, but I promise you, if they love you and care about you, they're not going to think you're crazy for doing something that they don't do. They may not choose to jump on the train with you, but they'll listen. Okay? And they're still going to be your friends, even if they think it's a little weird. Okay? They're not going to think ugly things about you, I promise. Unless they're ugly people. And I would hope that if they're ugly people, you wouldn't want to be friends with them, right? So there you go. And of course, I'm not talking about their face. You know what I mean. But the way that you bring up the dangers is that, I find that with my female friends, occasionally, again, I'm sorry, I'm shifting a lot today. The chair is not comfortable today. But, if they, girlfriends, when they're sitting around talking about things, it comes up. Somebody at some point is going to mention periods. And remember what I said before, that, my favorite way to open the conversation, it changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. So whatever it is for you that was the good result, the thing that for you was the big reason you switched, maybe it's because you're an environmentalist and that's really in your close to your daily heart, that it's like, I couldn't stand throwing all that away. You could start with, when somebody's talking about a tampon story, or when somebody is talking about periods, or next time you're with a girlfriend and you laugh at a Tampax commercial or an Always commercial when it comes on, because those are always ridiculously cringeworthy, aren't they? But when one of those commercials for a menstrual product comes on TV and you guys laugh at it, you can look over and say, 17,000 of those go into landfills every year, just from the United States alone. It was 17,000, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It was 17,000 per person. The average woman put 17,000 into the landfill over the course of her lifetime, and I forget the number off the top of my head because I've just flustered myself. by saying it wrong. But you can say, you know how many billion of those go into the landfill every single year just in the United States? It's disgusting. That's a great way to open the conversation. Or the next time you see, because they're on TV now, the commercials for Vagisil itch cream and the Summer's Eve itch wipes and all those things. The reason those itch wipes are there is because of the disposable cloth pads. That's the reason that most people have external vulvar itching that doesn't have anything to do with yeast infections. Yeast infections are a whole different topic. But, the daily skin itching, all those itch products and creams and stuff, the next time one of those ads comes on and you and your girlfriends are laughing about it, you can say, well, you could buy that. You could ask the poor shell-shocked teenager in the store where the Vagisil cream is and have his little pubescent face look up at you and go, oh my God, you're asking me where period products are. You can make jokes like that and say, or you could just use cloth pads. Or at any rate, it's a segue into, oh, I don't use that stuff anymore because I had that problem. Because, start with something like that. It doesn't have to be a premeditated intervention. We don't need to get a whiteboard and have a 5-point plan. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be premeditated. It can just be organic conversation. And there will be opportunities to have these conversations with your girlfriends. It does come up. Somebody makes a period joke. Somebody makes a joke about pads. A commercial comes on the TV. Or some man in the family makes a joke about PMS. And then you guys start having a conversation that is tangential to all of these topics. And you'll find a way to be like, well, I don't use those anymore. That was the way my friend Billy Jo brought it up to me. She said, all of those problems are solved if you just do what I do. And it didn't work the first time we had the conversation, but you know what? I didn't think she was crazy. I didn't think bad things about her. Even though my initial response to the concept of reusables was, that was my first response to the concept. But I never thought a single bad thing about her. And I adored her for having those conversations with me, even at the time, even though I didn't want to switch yet. I've never had a bad thought about Billy Jo because I found out that she used cloth pads and menstrual cups. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that framing it with this tone and with this language is showing you how irrational those fears and anxieties that we have really are. Because I do think it's important to tell women that they have these options. And so I'm really glad that you put that second part on the question. The way that you bring it up is you just wait for an organic place in the conversation and then get right in there. And they're not going to think bad things, and they're not going to think you're crazy. And if they do think you're crazy, they probably weren't your friend, because, that's a big leap to make when you find out that your friend has an opinion that you'd never considered, or an opinion that's different than yours. Do you think they're crazy? No, you don't think bad things about them. You might go, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard her say. But you don't think anything bad about her, do you? No, you still love her. You still want to be with her. You're still her friend. You still respect her. That's all that's going to happen for you, I promise. So again, just sit with it until you really metabolize the truth of what I've just said. Okay? Thank you so much for that question. I really think it was the most important one. Okay, so moving on. This is from a younger person, and she says, I want to use cloth pads, but I don't want anyone to know because my family thinks it's gross. So how can I clean and soak my pads without anyone finding them? Also, where should I put my wet bag? I share a bathroom with my sister, so basically, how can I use cloth pads discreetly? Okay, well, I've already explained how I feel about keeping secrets. So I don't think you should keep it secret that you're using them. How I would encourage you to present this to your family is say, okay, I really want to do this. These are the reasons. And I understand that you're grossed out by it. Even though I feel you when we say, I think that's terrible that they've responded that way. And I am very sorry that they have not been more supportive of this choice. But here's how I would like for you to approach it. Okay. Since you are still living with your family under their roof and in their care. I don't approve of secrecy within the immediate family unit. I don't approve of secrecy. Privacy is what I'm going to urge you, and I'm going to try to, this is how I urge you to to go forward with it, okay? Because I'm going to show you how to take this idea that you have that you need secrecy and turn it into privacy, which is acceptable, okay? Go to them and you say, okay, I really want to do this. This is very important to me for A, B, and C, okay? Say, I understand that you don't like it. I understand that you think it's gross. So here's what I want to do so that you don't have to see it. You don't have to deal with it. And I promise, and I want you to say that, say, I promise I will not make you see it or deal with it. I will keep it private. I will keep it to myself, but this is very important and I really need you to allow me to do this. Okay? So frame it that way from the very beginning. And in the tone of voice that I'm using here, don't be sarcastic. I know you probably have some negative feelings about this. I would have been resentful too if I had been shot down. So I'm not minimizing your feelings, and I swear I'm not talking down to you, okay? But when you go to them about this, be firm, and be confident. I've thought this out. This is really important to me. This is my body, and this is a choice that I really need to make, and I need you to let me make this choice. And I understand that you find it distasteful. I understand that you think it's gross and that it's disgusting, but it is not. It is perfectly clean. Thousands of women in the United States do this and all over the world. And so they have taught me how to do this the right way and the clean way. And I promise that you won't have to look at it and you won't have to deal with it. Okay. So that's how I want you to take it to your parents. Okay. And try it that way. Now, here's how I think you should deal with the physical handling of it so that it is discreet and that you can fulfill that promise not to make them deal with it or see it or whatever, okay? First of all, your wet bag. I want you to keep your wet bag in your room. Sorry, monitor flash. Oh, I don't know why it started doing that again all of a sudden. I had it fixed so it wouldn't do that, but now it's doing it again. In your bedroom, if you have a closet that has a door in it, or if you have a closet that has a bar for hanging clothing, you can affix your wet bag to a hanger. And I'll put a photograph of what I'm talking about. I'll switch over and show you a photograph. You can hang your wet bag on a hanger in your bedroom. There will be no odor, so there will never be a problem. They won't ever. They're going to assume that there's going to be one, and you can say, no, there won't be an odor. You'll never smell anything, I promise. Okay? And then just make sure that happens. If you happen to have a month where your pH is off and you notice that there's something coming from the pads. I've not had that happen, but several women have. Sometimes if you get ill, there might be. So it's on you to notice that if that's happening, you'll just have to wash them more frequently. So I'm going to click over and show you a picture of what I mean about where I think you could hang a wet bag privately in your room, in your closet, so nobody sees it, okay? Okay, so this is my wet bag. I just put it on a hanger as I was discussing and hung it up in my closet so you could see this is the scenario that I'm talking about and encouraging for you. Okay, so you hang your wet bag up in your room like that. Now, when you go to the restroom to change a pad, you take the wet bag with you into the bathroom, and you can leave it on the hanger if you want to, and hang it on the towel bar next to the toilet, or hang it or put it on the floor in front of you, a place that's convenient for you while you're sitting on the toilet dealing with your pad or your cup or whatever. And I strongly suggest that you mix cup and pad use in tandem with one another, because then there will be less menstrual fluid getting on your pads if you're using a cup. Plus, you're going to school and all these things. And if I'm not mistaken, you are open to cup use. I think we talked about that. But if you're not, pads only is fine. When you go in there to change a pad, you do it just like, I encourage everyone else to do. You take your dirty one off, fold it, snap it, put it in your wet bag, close the wet bag back up, put your clean pad on, and then take the wet bag back with you to your room and put it away. That's kind of a pain in the tush, but if you want to do this discreetly, that's how you're going to have to do it. You could also just go in there, put the clean one in your underwear, take the dirty one off and snap it. Nobody's ever going to see it. But again, if you walk past somebody in the hall and they're really going to be big babies about it and freak out that you're carrying a pad that's folded up, and they see you carrying a cloth pad, and if they're going to do that, then that's horrible, and I'm so sorry. But then carrying it in the wet bag would be the way to handle that. So do it as you will. And then when it comes time to clean them, what I want you to do, and you can get one of these super inexpensively at any kind of a department store anywhere in the United States, like a Walmart, a Target, a Home Depot, wherever you end up going, you can find for, $5 to $10, you can find a wastebasket that is the appropriate size. And I want this wastebasket needs to be made out of plastic, not metal, and it needs to be it needs to have a lid on it that's the swing lid. Because the swing lid is not airtight, which means that when your pads are soaking in there, there won't be any mold or mildew growing in there. It'll just be the swing, and the swing lid keeps it private. Nobody can see what's in there unless they go into your room, open the swing lid, and look in, and then that's their fault. Okay, so you get one of those. Now, when it's time to wash your pads, you go and you fill the little wastebasket up. To about, the level that you need to cover your pads. You put OxiClean in there. Watch my how to wash your pads so you don't get stains videos and follow that process exactly. Only you're going to do it in your opaque wastebasket instead of doing it in the bathroom sink that you share with your sister. Okay? So you put all of your soiled pads straight out of the wet bag into OxiClean water in your waste bin that you have. That's the opaque plastic waste bin with the swing lid on it. Put the swing lid on top of it. Leave those pads in there overnight. Then the next morning, when it's your turn to use the bathroom, you carry, and don't get a big one that's going to be heavy and awkward to carry. Get a small one that you can easily pick up even when it's full of soiled pads and water. And then you walk your pail with the lid still on it. You walk it to your bathroom, close the door. And then what you want to do is you can either reach in and take all the pads out, or you can carefully pour the soiled water, which is going to have blood and stuff in it. Pour the dirty water into the toilet, then go over to the sink, squeeze all of your pads out, rinse them all out until the water's running clear, then put all your damp pads back inside the now empty waste bin, and then you can carry them back to your room for stain treatment, or you can put more water in there with more Oxy for a second soak. Basically, you're just going to do all of this in your little private trash bin instead of in the sink, okay? And then wash your own load of laundry at the end of your cycle so that all of your stain treated and ready to go into laundry pads go into the laundry with your regular clothing. And so you carry all that and you do your own load of laundry at the end of your period. I hope that made sense. You should be able to do it that way without offending anybody, without touching anybody else's clothes. None of your blood or anything menstrual is going to be going into the washing machine, because you will be getting all of that out of your pads before it goes into the washing machine, and you're going to be washing them with your laundry. Did that make sense? If it didn't, get with me in private message and I can explain it better. Or maybe I can get a little opaque bucket and I can do a video about how I would recommend doing that. But again, I want you to take your motivation from being secretive to just being private. And I hope that makes sense. That's my recommendation for you. What are some rumps misconceptions that you know of? So what are some misconceptions that I know of about reusable menstrual products? Okay, I'm going to start with maybe an unexpected answer here. This is one that I hear from people in the rumps community that we kind of propagate and perpetuate, and I wish it would stop. And that is that we go around telling people, if you change to cloth pads, you're going to have a shorter period, you're going to have a lighter period, and you're not going to have cramps anymore. And I really wish people from the reusables community would stop telling people that. It's true that quite a few people do experience one or more of those particular changes. But quite a few of us don't experience any of those changes. And so it's basically like promoting something with false advertising. And so if someone changes because they want a shorter, lighter period and they don't get that, they're going to be disappointed. It's not true. It's certainly not universally true. There are some people who experience those things, but not everybody does. And in fact, I would go so far as to say most of us don't. There are advantages for everyone, and it's more comfortable for pretty much everyone, but those particular things, you're not helping anybody by spreading that around, because it doesn't happen for everyone. And I've seen it. I've seen people come to the groups and they've been, I've been using cloth for 4 months now, and my period's not lighter and it's not shorter. What am I doing wrong? So stop telling people that. Second, okay, and this one is, the number one misconception about reusables is that they're dirty, that they're not as clean. People are like, there's no way you could get everything out of that. That's so dirty. Okay. I would highly encourage people to go and watch the videos that are available on YouTube about how disposable pads are manufactured. They are manufactured on these huge machines that crank them out at like 1,000 a minute. And they get shoved into these plastic, and there's dust flying around, there's cellulose flying around, all that stuff gets packed in. Okay, it's been bleached white, but it's bleached white long before it goes through this process on these conveyor belts. And like there's like 100 different parts of these machines that touch pads that are then going to touch your skin. I honestly think that contact with all that metal is probably on the machines is part of the allergic response that I had, because I'm very allergic to almost every kind of metal. So I mean, you know, that's not sterile. Those are filthy. They're covered in dust, not to mention all the chemicals and things that we've talked about that are in them. Disposables are absolutely disgusting now, just thinking about it. Now that I know what they're made of and how they are made, they're filthy. How they have managed to bamboozle generations of women into thinking that that's cleaner than something that you thoroughly clean at home yourself that's made out of natural fibers. How they've managed to convince us all that it's the opposite of what it really, it's like upside down bizarro world, that we're supposed to think disposables are clean, and we're supposed to think that this pad made out of, you know, organic cotton or organic bamboo velour and all these fibers that we use in the fabrics that we use that get completely soaked and stain treated, and then they get run through the laundry. They're clean all the way through. They're germ free all the way through. And menstrual cups get boiled between cycles, for heaven's sakes. They're actually sterile. There is no point at which any part of a tampon that's from a disposable box has ever been sterilized. Ever. My cup gets sterilized between cycles. So that's the number one misconception that I know about, is that everybody thinks that reusables are dirty or that they're not as clean as disposables, and the opposite is very much true. How are you going to introduce reusable menstrual products to your daughter? I've always wondered how to broach the subject. Well, it depends on what age your daughter is. I've already introduced reusables to my daughter, and that's basically just because I've been open about it. She's seen me sewing them. She sees me talking on YouTube about them. So I guess I'm probably not a very good example of how it happens in the average household, because most people don't have a YouTube channel about it. And quite a few cloth users don't sew their own. So she's seen me sewing them. She's heard me talk about them. And she's fully introduced. I would say if you use reusables, show them to your daughter. Show your daughter some cloth pads. Show your daughter a menstrual cup. Show her some videos of your choosing on YouTube or anywhere else that talk about the dangers of disposables, that talk about the advantages of reusables. Just be open. Don't be... How to broach the subject would be the next time you're talking to her about her period. I mean, if your daughter is already having a menstrual cycle, then I don't know, the next time you guys end up talking about it for whatever reason, whether it's to go and buy... Goodness, see how fast that's happening? Ugh, sorry. Whether it's the next time she says, Mom, I need tampons, and you need to put them on the list or buy them for her or whatever. The next time she asks you to buy some, say, well, how about we try these? And start feeling out how she feels about it. If she hasn't yet started her period, then basically when you start teaching her what a period is, show her the reusables. You don't even have to talk to her about disposables, really. You just show her these are the things that you're going to have to take care of it. You'll have these for pads, and when you're ready to do it, I can show her cups and how you want her to use those, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's basically just, again, I think that a lot of us, we get it built up in our minds that this needs to be like a formal 5-point plan on a whiteboard, and we need to have an intervention kind of formal discussion. And in reality, that's not how I found that it happened. I found that it was just, these conversations just came up and happened more organically than that. Oh, and this one was a similar question where she said, how do you introduce your kid to them and at what age? I think the age will vary from child to child and from parent to parent. You know your child. I knew mine. And when her body started to have some changes and I knew that that meant that menstruation was going to be a year or two away, I decided to sit down and just make sure that she had all the information she needed. And whenever she asked me any questions, I was very thorough and very truthful in my answers. And so when you start to notice that your child is hitting puberty, and that can be body odor, that, you know, when they start having underarm odor, when they start getting hair under their arms or on their genital region, when their leg hair starts to grow, when they start to have their hips change, they start to put on that fat layer and eat more. That comes right before puberty hits. You know, the development of hips and breasts. When you start to see those changes begin, that's when I think that you need to start telling your child. And for some of us, that happens when our daughter is 8. For some of us, it happens when she's 14. So watch your child, engage with your child, and make sure that she has the information she needs before she needs it. You know, don't wait. I think that the biggest disservice we can do to our daughters is because we don't think they're old enough to know this stuff, which is actually just code for we're uncomfortable talking about it. Because that's, I feel very passionately about that. There's a lot of people, well, my daughter's too young to know these things. Well, if your 9-year-old goes to school and she has her period start on her at school and she is terrified and thinks that she's dying because you thought she was too young to hear about it, then you failed your daughter. You know what I mean? And I don't, this is not aimed at the person who asked me this question. This is just a general statement. Because I have seen from time to time where people have that particular attitude. Well, she's too young to know about that. Not if she starts bleeding. She's not too young to know about it. So I think that at what age goes from child to child. It really does. Tell her when you start to see these changes happening and make sure she knows before it happens to her. Okay? And you know, if you have an 8-year-old who's not showing any signs of any of these physical changes and she's very immature about that stuff, you don't have to tell her yet. But as soon as those changes start taking place, boy, you gotta sit down and explain it, because that would be the most traumatic thing, I think. That's the big one, is the age is before she starts her period. Make sure that you have armed her with the information that she needs before she needs it, if that makes sense. How can I satisfy my tween daughter's curiosity about everything cloth? Buy her cloth pads, teach her how to sew, let her pick her own fabrics out. And if you have a tween, which I'm assuming is a 10 or 11-year-old, she's old enough. Tell her everything. Answer all her questions. Let her look for pads. Start to build her a stash of pads. That is, at the age of 10 or 11, they need to know. Okay, what are your thoughts on reusables being presented during sex ed classes in public schools? Preach it. I think that would be amazing. I think that that's where we need to get. Judy, excellent point. I think that's where we need to be. They need to be mainstreamed that way, because that's, okay, you have this option, you have these disposable options over here, and then you also have these options over here. And these options are good for these people, and these options are good for these people. I would love to see that happen. Would love to see that happen. Yeah, I think that would be outstanding. And I think, unfortunately, I think we're probably a ways off from that. Don't even get me started on public schools. That's a whole other conversation. Anyway, so that was all of the questions that I had under this category. And so I hope that this was interesting. I hope that, you know, I hope that you feel I took you seriously, because I very much did. I think that this part is the part that people, this video, the questions in this video, this is the part that people grapple with. You know, there's the initial, oh gosh, how are we going to do this? How does this work? What do I do? And then after we figure that out and we're on board, man, we've made the decision, then we have to deal with the people we live with and the people we work with and the feelings that we have. And then we have to confront that backpack I told you about. We have to confront that, and we have to deal with it, and we have to decide how we have to make that choice that I was talking about. And that's the hard part. It really is. That's the hard part. And I'm looking forward to a day when none of us has to make that choice, because it's not like that anymore. But until then, that's why we have YouTube. And that's why we have all of you lovely people. And I am so appreciative, and I am very conscious of the trust that people place in someone to ask them these questions. So I'm really appreciative, and I'm blown away that you want to hear what I have to say about these things. So I really very much appreciate that. I am so grateful that more people are having these conversations, because they're very important, I think. All right, so we got the giveaway in 2 days. I'm so excited. You can still enter just because I finished posting these Q&A videos. The giveaway is open until March the 31st. So go ahead, and if you haven't entered by asking a question on my channel, go ahead and ask a question on my channel. And even though it won't be in a Q&A video like this one, I will take note of the question. Not only do I answer them in these videos, I look at those questions, and because they give me an idea of what kind of videos I need to make and things that I need to explain, things that I need to demonstrate. So ask me any question you like before March 31st. And then on March 31st after 12, I will stop taking names. 12 midnight, I will stop taking names. And then on April 1st, we will draw the winners. And I'm so excited. All right, thank you very much. I will see you again very soon. And thank you so much for bringing this channel to 500 subscribers. At the time I'm making this video, we have more than 720. And wow, guys, thank you so much. Bye.